Mary Elizabeth Parker here, and it's time for another Random Facts Friday! Alright, so, since some of you may know this already, May 25th of this year, 2017, is actually the 40th anniversary of when Star Wars was in the theater for the very first time. So, I thought today's Random Facts might as well be Star Wars Random Facts. There are a lot of things out there, which is great. Hopefully some of these are things that people don't know, and I'm sure that the Uber fans will know. I'm not talking about the car service, I'm talking about the German word Uber. So, some of the interesting facts that I found were things like Luke Skywalker was almost a girl. So, apparently, when he was working on the second draft of the epic sci-fi space opera he called Adventures of the Starkiller, Episode 1, Star Wars. Of the many problems, yes, I have notes, deal with it. Of the many problems with this chunky script that would eventually become Star Wars A New Hope, one that seemed easily fixed to Lucas was the series' lack of female characters. So he admits it. He really wished he had more female characters. So Lucas did something radical. He rewrote the story's main character, Luke Starkiller, as an 18-year-old girl. At least one concept drawing by artist Ralph McQuarrie exists of this short-lived gender swap, but a few months later with Lucas's next draft, Starkiller was a boy again. So, yes, they do want more female, which probably explains why Princess Leia is such a strong character, and yeah. Yoda was almost a monkey in a mask. So, better than CG, right? No, okay. So, apparently, it was lucky that there was a monkey expert on set to throw a banana peel in this plan's tracks. One of the crew who worked with apes in 2001 Space Odyssey quickly pointed out, look, the monkey's just going to pull off the mask over and over again. It's never going to work. The team soon enlisted Muppet Mastercrafter Jim Henson, who suggested Frank Oz. And yeah, the next one is not as interesting in my opinion. At the start of A New Hope, Chewbacca is 200 years old. So, yeah, apparently he's older than we all thought. He's aging excellent. Now who's older? Here, Yoda. Now I'm curious how old Yoda is. The word Ewok is never mentioned once in the original trilogy, though they do get a credit at the end. So it's in the credit crawl, but they never use the word Ewok. I thought that was extremely interesting. And the Ewoks anthem has a classic rock connection. The final victory song sung by the Ewoks at the end of Jedi was written by the same dude. That's their wording, not mine. So the same person who wrote Africa, Joseph Williams, who is the lead singer of Toto, and son of legendary composer John Williams. And then, in another surprising composition news, the new Cantina music featured in The Force Awakens was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator and star, well, I think he's actually finally left, but of Hamilton. I thought that was extremely interesting. I really liked that new Cantina music. I bought the music for flute, and it sadly isn't in there. So if they ever put that out there on sheet music, I will probably buy it. Other notable movie noises: bears, walruses, and all the cell doors in Alcatraz. Kids could thank sound designer Ben Burt, I know I have a friend who's a huge fan, for some of the most memorable noises of their childhood. Want to know how he did it? The sound of Darth Vader's breathing was recorded by putting a microphone inside a scuba tank regulator. It was not James Earl Jones who did that. There was 4 people who ended up doing Darth Vader. Chewbacca's signature Wookiee gargle is a combination of bear, walrus, lion, and badger sounds. The sound of Vader's pod door closing in Empire is reportedly the sound of a whole block of Alcatraz cell doors slamming shut. The sound stuff's kind of interesting. I find Foley work pretty intriguing anyway. So their unique way to look at, well, hear sounds and repurpose them for something else is always rather amazing to me. It takes a lot of imagination. Let's see here. Anthony Daniels, who voiced C-3PO and climbed into the tin suit, is the only actor to appear in all 8 Star Wars films. You have to count the Clone Wars animated film, of course. Kenny Baker did not actually film anything for Revenge of the Sith. His parts were a mix of CGI and footage recycled from Attack of the Clones and The Force Awakens. R2 was a mix of manual robot and CGI, as Baker was too aged to perform. And sadly, Baker is no longer in this realm. Maybe he's a blue ghost somewhere. He's been coming by the Force, I think. The furry Ewoks were a late addition to the Star Wars mythology. Sorry, my own fault. In Jedi, their part in the story was to be played by Wookiees, but by the time Lucas and his production partner sat down to write Return of the Jedi, they realized that because Chewbacca could fly the Millennium Falcon, repair the ship, and operate pretty much any weapon or machine in the known universe, they'd made the Wookiees too technologically advanced for the plot. On the Hoth planet base, that dude, to which Han Solo retorts, "Then I'll see you in hell," just before he heads out to find a certain missing Jedi. That's Cliff Clavin from Cheers, better known, his acting name, or his real name, instead of Cliff Clavin, is, where did I go? I just don't want to mispronounce his last name, is John Ratzenberger. It's one of those, I know the name, but I don't want to mispronounce by accident. And these days he does voice acting for Pixar primarily, so you probably recognize his voice more than his face for the current generation, but my generation still remembers him from Cheers. He was Norm's good buddy, he was a mailman on there. Extra bonus random fact for you. The famous reveal of the father and son relationship between Vader and Luke in The Empire Strikes Back is often misquoted as, "Luke, I am your father." The line is, "No, I am your father." I know that one is very commonly misquoted. I know several people who keep insisting that that's the case. There are books about misquoted movies, actually, out there. Nothing all that interesting on that page. When Jango Fett gets into his ship after his fight with Obi-Wan in the Attack of the Clones, he bangs his head on the open door. This was intentional and is a reference to a famous goof from the original movie where a cloned stormtrooper accidentally bangs his head on the door. The clone being the movie where the clone being a descendant of Jango Fett and having inherited his character trait. Sorry that this is a little sloppy. I'm kind of trying to rush it before I go to work, so sorry. And did not take enough time to prepare my notes. In the original draft of Star Wars, Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker were definitely different people. It wasn't until the development of the script, The Empire Strikes Back, that the two were combined as one character. This means Darth Vader does not mean Dark Father, and the name was not a hint to Luke's parentage. Rogue One is the first big screen Star Wars that John Williams has not recorded the score for. Michael Giacchino, sorry if I mispronounced that, composed the music for Rogue One. Obviously he took a lot of inspiration from the John Williams and used a lot of leitmotif, so to speak, from the John Williams works to give it that air, but you can hear the differences. I think it's very well melded into the Star Wars universe. So yeah, so John Williams, sadly, not the composer on Rogue One, but kind of appropriate since it's kind of a standalone story in its own way within the story. It doesn't deal with the main Star Wars heroes that we're used to. Let's see. What else? I've got a bad feeling about this. I know it's one of my favorite jokes, and every time I hear it, I always laugh. Or a variation of it is spoken in every movie. It kind of became an ongoing joke, apparently. None of the Star Wars films have credits at the beginning of them. This actually became a really big deal and meant Lucas quit various film institutions such as the Directors Guild, because that was a requirement apparently for the Directors Guild, and Star Wars films were considered independent movies. I thought that was extremely interesting, that was such a deal breaker for the Directors Guild to not do the traditional. Oh, and that opening crawler is actually physical for the early ones. They put the lettering on black paper and rolled it. First time that was used was actually in Flash Gordon, but still, today that's something we take for granted that is easy to do. You can do it on your home editing stuff, but back then they actually had to physically do it. I often find physical effects much more interesting because they take more creative mind. The Phantom Menace's production sets were built only as high as the tops of the actors' heads, and computer graphics filled in the rest. But it was realized that Liam Neeson was so tall that they needed to build things taller, and this cost production another $150,000 in construction costs. Somewhere else it states how Liam Neeson is actually 6'4", and apparently the other actors not as tall. Good thing they didn't have Chewbacca in that one for those scenes. What's in a name? The name Qigong derives from an ancient Chinese system of alternative medicine called Qigong. The word Jin refers to the DGINN, or the so-called genies of Arabian myth. Qigong was actually a Padawan of Count Dooku. Don't know how that adds to his story. Now I kind of want to know even more. I will admit I have not really read the books, but I know a lot of people who have. Actor Hayden Christensen played Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith as opposed to David Prowse, who previously did the role. Hayden apparently begged Lucas to let him play him. The suit had to be designed to accommodate his smaller stature than Prowse. Not that Lucas would have cast Prowse, as he appears to have something against him and finds him annoying. In fact, Prowse is banned from all Star Wars events. I've heard backstories on that. I did not notice them in the research I printed up, so I'm not going to say what it is here. It's probably true for what the issue is, but I'm not going to say it because I did not find proof-ish. Because internet, let's be honest, not always accurate. Then we have the sound of the hovering battle tanks used by the battle droids in the Phantom Menace was created by running an electric razor around a metal salad bowl and then digitally lowering the pitch. Our audio engineer's pretty creative and awesome. The sound effects when Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber is kicked down the reactor shaft in the climactic battle of Darth Maul is the same sound effect heard as when Luke Skywalker throws his lightsaber away in Return of the Jedi, when he tells the Emperor that he is a Jedi like his father before him. In Rogue One, the planet Jeddah features a place known as the Temple of Wills. This is a great reference to some obscure Star Wars trivia. The Journal of the Wills was a formal record of history maintained by the beings known as the Whills, W-H-I-L-L-S. During the original Star Wars writing period, George Lucas had the idea that R2-D2 relayed those stories he knew to the Whills so that the Skywalker saga could be recorded for all time. Yes, the mainstream of the movies are basically about the Skywalkers. You didn't know? No? Okay. I like to pretend it's about R2. So Phantom Menace was the name of a villain in the Flash Gordon comics, which shouldn't surprise too many people, as George Lucas has often cited Flash Gordon as one of his inspirations for making the original Star Wars. In the film of Flash Gordon, Max von Sydow played villain Ming the Merciless. Sydow will now have a role in Episode 7, which is already out. Okay. This one I thought was interesting. Admiral Akbar's backstory is that he was once the slave of Grand Moff Tarkin, as well as his personal pilot. Darth Vader's funeral pyre scene on Endor was added at the very last moment, long after principal photography and pickups had wrapped. The scene was thrown together and shot near the hills of Skywalker Ranch. We'll skip that one right now, because you can find a lot of these too, obviously, since I just did internet research to find these things, but hopefully I'm kind of compacting them down for you a little bit. A venerable, if maverick, Jedi Master, Qui-Gon Jinn, was a student of the living Force. Unlike other Jedi Masters, who often lose themselves in the meditation of the unifying Force, Qui-Gon Jinn lived for the moment, espousing a philosophy of feel, don't think, use your instincts. I already covered that one, and that. Boba Fett's face is actually visible in the original movies. You may think you never see Boba Fett's face in the original trilogy, but the actor who played Fett, Jeremy Bulloch, did stand in for an Imperial officer at the last minute. Covered a bad feeling about this gag. I've heard a sound collage, which for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like music built around clips. Whether it's using sound clips of people speaking or music, and it's mixed together in such a way, it's really interesting to listen to for me. But there is somebody who has a sound collage of, actually a few sound collages that are Star Wars related, and he actually has a whole thing about I have a bad feeling about this, clipped together with different actors, with different characters saying it. So maybe I'll put that name down there so you can try to find him. This one was very surprising to me. NSYNC nearly had a cameo in Attack of the Clones. I don't know what that cameo was going to be. Now I kind of curious how that was going to work. But the boy band's NSYNC made a cameo in Attack of the Clones at the request of George Lucas's daughter. They were edited out of the final cut, so that's why we don't know what they did. It's like, were they a cantina band type situation? Were they something else? I want to know. Yoda has no determined species. Yoda's species has never been named, and so it's a mystery. Yoda is not considered a Muppet. So even though legendary Muppeteer Frank Oz voiced Yoda and Jim Henson oversaw his creation, he was built by a member of Lucasfilm. So he's not technically a Muppet, even though big guys in the Muppet realm were very involved with that. And depending on which movie you're watching, Yoda has a different number of toes. Sometimes he has 3, sometimes he has 4. This one I found super interesting because I love Stanley Kubrick. He's my favorite director. And so I loved finding out that Star Wars and 2001: A Space Odyssey share almost the exact same production crew. George Lucas admired Stanley Kubrick, and when he set out to make Star Wars, he hired so many people who worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey that the group was referred to as the class of 2001. Like I said, huge Kubrick fan here. So that to me is really excellent. And the guy who knew about the monkey was one of those people. Qui-Gon Jinn used a Gillette razor for his communicator. I think that one's one of the funniest things. It seems very Star Trek instead of Star Wars to me. In episode 1, the personal communicator used by Qui-Gon Jinn is actually made from a resin cast of a Gillette Lady Sensor XL razor. Ewoks speak Tibetan. There's actually there are people whose job it is to create languages for films and television that are unique, but they still have language rules. So that's why you can find things like dictionaries on Klingon. But this is interesting because the Ewok language is actually a combination of Tibetan and Nepalese, which for some reason to me that seems like it's actually possible that that's a real thing anyway. Just like in the Pyrenees Mountains you have a Spanish and French combination. So Maybe they were lazy, maybe it was just that it was cool. It makes me wonder if people who speak those languages can understand what the Ewoks are saying. It's not like those are not languages I speak at this time. Maybe someday, but I've got a lot more on my list ahead of it. The sound of the TIE Fighter engine is actually an elephant. The sound of a TIE Fighter engine was created by combining an elephant bellow and a car driving on wet pavement. Chewbacca's voice is an eclectic mix of other animals, which I mentioned earlier. The lightsaber noise comes from the familiar hum of an old television. So I know a lot of you out there may not remember what that was like. I remember when we had dial televisions and you'd get the hum of it. So the noise of a lightsaber makes is created by combining the hum of an old television picture tube and the buzz of a film projector's motor. I actually already knew that information, but I figured there are people who might not know it, and it's, like, again, kind of a fun thing. You can use Star Wars collectible coins as real money. The tiny South Pacific island of Niue, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it completely wrong, accepts limited edition Star Wars collectible coins as legal tender. We already discussed Liam Neeson being too tall. I think that's getting to the end, don't worry. And again, I'm sorry this one's kind of sloppy and like I said, I'm kind of rushing it. This one was one I loved. Contrary to fan folklore, Alec Guinness didn't have a completely catastrophic time while shooting A New Hope. Yes, he may have thought Harrison Ford's first name was Tennyson, and yes, he may have referred to the film as fairy tale rubbish, but the actor was so disappointed to learn that his character would be killed off at the end of A New Hope that George Lucas had Obi-Wan Kenobi come back as a ghost during The Empire Strikes Back. It means he doesn't hate it that much, did he? That one I already covered. The X-Wing was inspired by Western films. Classical X-shaped wing was strongly influenced by the idea it could draw its weapons rapidly like a character from a Wild West film. And that is all I think I really intended to share with you regarding the Star Wars information I found. There's so much more out there. Hopefully you found this one interesting. Again, sorry for the sloppiness. Feel free to share down below in the comments what your favorite pieces of trivia of Star Wars are, or any ideas that you might have for me to do future Random Fact Fridays. Hopefully you're enjoying my series with that, and enjoying the Wednesday videos as well. Hopefully, again, I do hope to get my scheduling done in a way where I have more time for editing than I currently do, because I've been recording the same day of posting. Thank you for watching and taking this journey with me. I hope you have a great weekend and a safe weekend since it is Memorial Day. Watch out there for the people who are driving when they shouldn't, and if you are imbibing, please don't drive. Find another way. If your only ride home is one of the people who shouldn't be driving, find another way. Call a different friend, call a cab, something. Just take their keys, hide it until they're sober, even if you have to. I'm very anti-drinking and driving, obviously. So have fun with your weekend, and I don't know if the fly just came through on the screen, sorry if it did, and try to be kind to each other, and thank you again. Bye. Hi there, Mary Elizabeth Parker here, and I did have a friend who is a huge Star Wars fan point out some things that needed clarification, and one place where I embarrassingly mispronounced someone's name because I was in such a hurry and I'm not used to reading it that I just was not paying enough attention. So this is a short bonus video that I'm going to put up, and I may also attach it to the end of that video if I can figure out how, so that way the people who are watching it new don't have to watch this one as well. So, here are some of the things that I thought I should mention. So, C-3PO, aka Anthony Daniels, has actually been in 9 films now as of Rogue One. So obviously the fact that I read was before Rogue had been posted before Rogue One came out, which is fine. It's just good to know he has been in every Star Wars movie so far. Hopefully that will continue for a very long time. So that was the first trivia fact that I thought I should clarify, because, as I said, some of the information I had gotten was before Rogue One, or right around the time of even earlier films, The Joys of the Internet and Things Never Dying. So, that's one of them. And then with another clarification, when George left the Directors Guild voluntarily, it was actually because they sued him and threatened to pull Empire in the theaters. So that's why he left the Directors Guild, and technically Star Wars is an independent film, or at least was. Now the opening credits that I had mentioned, they were physically done and they were huge. And it was physically on the floor, and then the camera was overhead on a crane, or maybe a dolly, probably a crane though, and it moves over the crawl, getting the angle and three-dimensional effect of getting further away. So that's another interesting clarification, like I said. Now, I still can't believe that I mispronounced this. I know better than that. I'm not as idiotic as it made me sound, probably. Pronunciation of the Jedi that I refer to is Qui-Gon Jinn. So sorry I mispronounced that, especially to those who love Star Wars as well. I'm a casual fan, but I know a lot of people out there are huge fans. And then I also accidentally misspelled Jinn as D-G-I-N-N, which is actually D-J-I-N-N. So I just wanted to clarify some things up and correct myself on those boo-boos. I hope you'll continue watching and that you enjoyed my little extra bonus video for it. I will post another video Wednesday. Probably it will be a review of Get Out. I finally got to watch that. And then a Random Facts Friday, which hopefully I will know very soon what topic I'm going to choose. But I hope you'll keep watching and forgive me for my little boo-boos since I was in a hurry. I made mistakes and/or omitted things that really should have been in there. Thank you. I hope you have a great day and try to be kind to each other.